Today on Upfront, the high cost of higher ed. Wisconsin Republicans have a package of plans to make college more affordable. Next, UW System President Ray Cross on whether any of this will help your family send your kids to school. Then the bill to make it easier for private companies to buy public water systems, why environmental advocates are opposed. And the first big test in the race for president. Our political reporter explains what happens inside the Iowa caucuses.
Covering the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Upfront with Mike Goucher.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Upfront. College affordability, student loan debt. They're hot political topics these days with competing ideas on how best to tackle the problem. It's a topic that we'll be exploring in the coming months, and we begin today with Governor Walker's plans to make college more affordable. He has a package of bills that are sailing through the legislature. Despite Democratic claims the bills are inadequate, Assembly Republicans moved them out of committee last week and onward toward a floor vote. Among other things, the bills would lift the cap on tax-deductible student loan interest, boost emergency grants for UW and technical college students, and help students find more internships. The governor has also floated the idea of a 3-year college degree. We're talking about all of this today with UW System President Ray Cross, who is at our Madison affiliate, WKOW-TV. President Cross, it's good to have you back on the program again. I think you said about this package of legislation that it's a good first step. If that's the case, what are the next steps?
Well, there are a number of steps that I think we need to take to make college more affordable. Our goal is that tuition needs to be understood as only one piece of that the total cost of attendance needs to be considered. How do we reduce time to degree, total number of credits taken? Too many students take more credits than are necessary. So there are a number of factors that I believe could be very helpful in reducing the cost to attend college, total cost of college. And that's part of the affordability piece. This is a good first step.
And what do you say to Democrats who say this is inadequate, President Cross? They say that, we need to do something about refinancing or allowing people with student loans to refinance those loans. We need to do more. What do you say to those arguments?
Well, it's a delicate balance because some will argue that students who already have a college degree and have debt aren't as important in solving this problem as the 15 or 16-year-old who doesn't have a degree and needs one in our society to go to college. So the choice is a difficult choice. Do we fix this problem, which is a problem, student indebtedness historically, or do we invest in ways to help future students not incur that certain amount of debt? And I'm not suggesting that one is better than the other. All I'm arguing is that I, too, am concerned about that 15-year-old who doesn't have a college degree as opposed to the individual who has a degree but has considerable indebtedness. I believe the one with the college degree has a better chance of paying that off.
So there's a lot of talk about the prospect of this 3-year college degree. Help us better understand exactly how that would work.
Well, in essence, Mike, it's not a 3-year degree by itself. What we're attempting to do is look at the feasibility of shifting the first year into the high school so it's concurrent with the senior year in high school. So it's really a 4-year degree with the first year taken concurrently with their senior year in high school. I believe that what that does is reduce the total cost to attend college. In essence, we're looking at the idea in the Fox Valley in a discipline that the state badly needs, IT. IT is a broad category and there are a number of disciplines. But we've been talking with businesses in the region who are who are aggressively seeking graduates in those disciplines. And they are willing to help us fund this. So in essence, we believe the senior year to complete the first year of college in that degree might be free to the student. So that would reduce the total cost of attendance by 1/4 because the first year would essentially be free. In addition to that, they would be in the workplace a year earlier and their earnings would start much sooner. And I think employers are willing to practically guarantee a job once completed and work for that company during the summer. Now, that's an example where the discipline is badly needed in this state and how we can reduce the total cost to attend college. And in my mind, that's the target, reducing time to degree, credits necessary to complete a degree. We can't reduce that, but too many of them are taking more than they need. Those efforts will probably have a much bigger impact than a 2%, 3%, 5%, or even a freeze on tuition.
In this effort to keep college more affordable, I guess part of the discussion has to be the resources available to the University of Wisconsin system. And are you nervous at all, given some of the new revenue numbers that we've seen, that when the next budget cycle comes around, that the UW system may find itself in the crosshairs again, that because there are limited big pots of money, that the UW may be looked at again to do more with less?
I'm always nervous, Mike. But the university is a big portion of the budget. However, what's really encouraging right now, I think we're building a new partnership with the legislature. What you're hearing, a portion of the legislature is talking about student debt. That's a common conversation right now. Another portion, including the governor, is talking about how do we reduce the costs for students? How do we make it more affordable? Those are positive things. So it's exciting to me to see legislators reaffirming what we're hearing in the listening sessions. They're doing it through polling and assessing this from their constituents. We're hearing from folks around the state that college affordability, reducing college debt, higher education is really important to them. And what I'm saying from that, Mike, is I believe that legislators are not only hearing the same thing, but how do we in fact deal with that in a positive way? So I'm actually encouraged by this.
President Ray Cross, the president of the University of Wisconsin System. It's good to have you on the program again. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Mike.
And my conversation with President Cross will continue now on our website, WISN.com. We're talking about his recent meeting with student activists who had a list of demands, including an apology for the university's handling of racial issues. You'll find that on the Upfront section of WISN.com. State lawmakers want to make it easier to sell public water systems to private companies. We'll hear why environmental advocates think that's a bad idea. That's next. And later, the Iowa caucus is now just hours away. What happens inside a caucus? That's when Upfront continues.
Upfront with Mike Goucher, brought to you by the American Transmission Company and the Wisconsin Corn Growers Association.